Good morning, everyone. It's Anifa Menon from hearthealthbrainhealth.com, encouraging healthy grieving and mindful actions. Today, I would like to talk to you about number 4 from the list of values from the Bhagavad Gita, which is ancient scripture. So, today's value is forgiveness, and I think we all have value for forgiveness. I came across a quote by Oprah Winfrey, which tells you that, ancient teachings are also used in common normal times today. And this quote says, true forgiveness is when you can say, thank you for that experience. True forgiveness is when you can say, thank you for that experience. And I think this is so true because true forgiveness really does lift us, right? It frees us. It allows us to understand that situations happen, experiences happen, and forgiveness can happen. And forgiveness is incredibly freeing, both to another person and the self. And it's interesting, in the past few weeks, I guess I've been hearing a lot of clients and friends speaking about forgiveness. And I find it interesting that where I see people have the least ease in forgiveness is forgiving the self. So I know a lot of times people are aware of, I'm a person who holds grudges, people will say to me. And I always think that that's not so good. I mean, it's certainly very useful and wise to learn from an experience. But at the same time, to hold a grudge is to not forgive. And in this way, when people are talking to me more recently about not forgiving themselves, I, of course, had to sit down and contemplate this idea. And it occurs to me that that is the least easy. I find that myself and many of the people that I'm speaking with lately, and I'm sure it's because forgiveness is on my mind, are talking about not easily being able to forgive themselves. And I've certainly gone through that experience, and I'm aware of the level of standards that we put on ourselves are often higher than the levels that we put on others. So what we expect from ourselves can be a little bit higher because we expect more from ourselves. And I think it's important to remember that it's important to be able to forgive oneself. I came across another quote by Steve Maraboli, which I thought was really well written. And the quotation says, the truth is, unless you let go, unless you forgive yourself, unless you forgive the situation, unless you realize the situation is over, you cannot move forward. And I think this is so important for everyone to remember because you really cannot move forward without that true forgiveness. And not only for others, but for yourself too. I thought I'd finish with a little story that is a very light forgiveness story, but very amusing to me. So I thought it was a great way to end on a Friday. And I'll tell you that a number of years ago, I was crossing the street in downtown Toronto, and I was crossing at a crosswalk, and I had a green. So I'm walking across this crosswalk, and this car came turning around the corner and literally inches from my body, it stopped. And I remember just being in a state of shock at that moment. And the person rushed out of their car and was so incredibly apologetic. And I had no problem with forgiving this person. And I remember he rushed out and said, I'm so, so sorry. And he was so incredibly apologetic because he realized that he was turning at a time that he shouldn't be. But at the same time, he was also at quite a speed too. So it was a really close incident. But I remember at that time, again, having no problem with forgiving him and being so touched by how apologetic he was. And then he topped it up with a really amusing comment where he said, I'm really, really sorry. I know I almost hit you, but I have to tell you, you would have made a fantastic hood ornament. I just think that's so hilarious. Anyways, it made me laugh at that time too, and forgiveness was very easy. And you know how I love to add in humor in our life experiences. So I hope you remember that even forgiveness we can look at with humor. And thankfully, many of the things that we go through in our day-to-day experiences are not life and death situations. And maybe you can look into yourself to see whether you can forgive not only people around you, but yourself too. I'd love if you spend 5 minutes after this video to just sit down and write down 3 different incidents that you can forgive for or you have forgiven for. And if you know that there's an area that you're kind of holding back on, maybe ask yourself why. And maybe this weekend, it's Valentine's weekend, maybe you'll find a place in your heart to forgive. Have a great day, everyone. And remember, transform your mind and transform your life.